Buffalo's got a bright future and an unforgettable past. Buffalo's got Del and Matt on the Talkin' Proudcast. Tune in so you can hear philanthropists and volunteers, good people who live and work in the biggest city in Western New York.
Welcome to another edition of the Talking Proudcast with Matt and Del. Today we have a really special group of guests for us. During this time, there are a lot of people out there doing some great things for the community and for our first responders and for our medical professionals. One hard thing to get your hands on these days as just a regular citizen and even as a first responder is masks, PPE, personal protective equipment. And there is a huge group that keeps growing of people that have sewing skills or learning sewing skills that are out there actually creating these for people and building these real, true startups, makers, people really dusting off those old sewing machines and getting things done for the community. So we have a handful of those folks with us right now. So I'm going to introduce them to you one at a time, have them talk a little bit about what it is that they're doing specifically. And then we're going to speak to Debbie a little bit, who has a large Facebook group, which is also creating these masks and also sharing tips and tricks on how to do it. We're going to let you, that's the listeners, the watchers, learn how to get involved with these groups, where to find these masks, where to find even the materials to make them on your own. So first off, in no particular order, I'm going to introduce Tammy Gordon. Tammy, I will give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Hello, I'm Tammy Gordon from Alma, and I'm a second grade teacher by trade, and currently teaching online with my students. But I am making some of these masks with materials from my home, using pipe cleaners and fabric and elastic from my sewing room. I've made about and given out about between 50 and 70 so far. By the time I'm done, I have a stack of fabric cut and ready to go. And I plan on getting over 200 out distributed, I started giving them to my elderly family and a pharmacist across the street who works in one of the hospitals that didn't have any. Then I gave my students' parents who are first responders a mask for themselves, and now working through the community to give them to people who are in need.
I just have a quick question, Tammy. How did you learn how to make these?
Wonderful sewing machine that I kind of taught myself. I watched a few YouTube videos, asked a few friends who were making them as well, and I kind of made my own pattern that was easiest for me. My daughters turn them inside right when it's time, so we can kind of keep the flow going. And it's kind of YouTube and friends, community effort actually.
That's really cool. I mean, what we do without the community to help us, and also YouTube.
Yeah.
There's not much you can't learn how to do on YouTube.
I agree.
Just short of brain surgery, without a doubt.
I'm sure it's on there.
All right, Lola, it is your turn to tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now.
So I actually live in downtown Buffalo. I'm a bartender by day or night, whatever you want to call it. But the funny thing is I've actually been sewing for maybe like about 10 years. I used to be a really big influential sewing blogger, which is why I have like this really fancy machine that was gifted to me once upon a time. And I just kind of like fell through after bartending became like my full profession, which is the reason why I moved up here in Buffalo, is because the rent was, so cheap. So I was like, okay, well, I can bartend a few nights a week. And so, and just kind of got swept into bartending. After obviously being furloughed, I was like, well, what could I do with my time? And Corey Moscato, which you mentioned, was a mutual friend of ours. He had mentioned that there's this really big Facebook group called Buffalo Resilience that was trying to find people to make masks, to donate masks for first responders. And it's it's a little bit of something really close to me because my sister is a first responder in New York City. She is in the front lines. She's a resident in a hospital in the Bronx. And, you know, I FaceTime her every day, and I can just see how sad and exhausted she is, you know, having to do all these cases and have all the hospitals just, you know, have like this influx coming in. So, you know, I was like, well, all I can do right now is sew masks. So, you know, it's not much, but it's something, and I can do it. And it makes me feel a part of the community. The community is big, it's growing. And, you know, it really does kind of resonate what Buffalo is, which is the city of good neighbors.
For those of you who are watching and or listening, I'm going to put a link to the Buffalo Resilience webpage, which is going to be below here, depending on what channel you're looking at this on. But Buffalo Resilience is actually a cool thing, and there's actually a bunch of groups sort of bringing people together with tips and tricks on how to do this, and also telling people what the needs are and how they can distribute this stuff, which is a great segue into introducing Debbie. Debbie, you know what? I won't even introduce you because I probably won't do you justice. I'll give you the opportunity to sort of tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing right now.
That's funny. But I'm not really doing a whole heck of a lot. I am getting names and addresses of people who are offering to volunteer. Gina Redden started this group thinking she was going to get maybe 10 people to help her. And we've grown to almost 700 people in 2 weeks. What I'm going to do is just read what she has written on the page, which basically says it all. This group is is a collaboration of volunteers that are working remotely, but producing masks as a group, free of charge for hospitals, healthcare, emergency, and frontline workers that are in the area that are requesting them. We use the Facebook group to communicate and schedule pickup and drop-offs of material between the volunteers. And everybody has, you know, we have 4 or 5 of us that have our own little part in doing it. We're following a specific pattern that is intended to fit over the N95 masks, which will allow the healthcare workers to extend the life of the masks that they have. And all the materials that we use have been donated and are committed to these organizations.
That's amazing. I just want to real quick comment on how you opened up by saying you're not doing a lot, and then you immediately went into how you have over 700 people that you are taking names and numbers and coordinating. So I just want to chastise you for that real quick because I think you're doing what you're doing is a very big and necessary part of the whole process that you're
we have an elaborate process here, which organizational wise, Gina is like spot on. What they will do is join the Facebook group and say that they want to volunteer. And then they reach out to me and I put their name, address, phone number, email address in a spreadsheet. And I put in what they're looking for, you know, whether they want to sew, whether they want to drive, or whether they want to cut materials. And then I let Gina know that this person is going to be contacting them. And then what Gina and Dina do at Gina's house, they will take this list and they will get all the materials together, put them in paper bags and plastic bags, put them on her porch so that there is no contact. And then drivers will come and pick up packages for their deliveries, and other people will come and pick up and drop off their materials so that they can either cut or sew the masks.
That's amazing. So you're saving Gina and Dina, you're saving them all this administrative work so that they can really just hit the ground running with the information
Yes.
they need. So I just want to like commend you on that. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
That's so cool.
As someone who himself has coordinated volunteers in the past, and Del has firsthand experience also of my volunteer coordinating efforts, it is herding cats. Even when people all have the right intentions and want to help, getting people pointed in the right direction takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. So definitely a lot of commendation once again from me, Debbie. And then I want to make sure that Tammy and Lola also are aware of this group. So I'm gonna share a link to that with them as well if they're not already a part. Because Debbie, you're also
Perfect.
sharing some tips and tricks. I've seen on there different techniques that people are sharing and all sorts of different stuff like that as well, right?
Yes, I don't sew, but I want to pull my mom's old machine out and see if I can do this now because of these tips and tricks.
And
Kind of fun.
what's really cool about this is there's actually an opportunity for people right now to take some things that they might have laying around their house and actually learn a new skill that they may not have had before. Because as long as this whole situation, we'll call it, lasts, this will be a useful thing. And then going forward, these people are learning skills. I learned about different types of stitches I didn't even know were actual words, let alone ways to create personal protective equipment. So, this stuff is actually pretty cool and pretty interesting, and people are actually, learning some skills, which, in the future, I think people are going to be working with their hands a lot more, which is awesome.
I am impressed with these sewers. They're doing a phenomenal job. As of this morning, we have delivered 8,200 masks in 15 days.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's wow.
Yeah.
Now, Tammy, just if I can circle back real quick. So personally, Tammy, you said you've done about 220 so far, and I know there's a lot more coming. Lola, how many do you think you've done so far? Do you have an exact count or an approximate?
Yeah, so I kind of like do it as a conveyor belt method, which is, I mean, like in layman terms, it's like the same way that ready to wear gets done, where you'll cut 20 at a time and then work from there. So I'll have 20 pieces and then I'll do step one on every single one of the 20. I'll do step two. So then maybe like about, I don't know, like 2 hours or so, I'll be on my finishing process. So I've done that for a few days. So I'm gonna say maybe like about between that and other volunteer projects, I probably have done maybe like about 100 and something that I've donated and given to friends.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think it's so cool that, your current vocation is a bartender, but you have like this, history behind you in terms of like your blog and everything else. Like you have this like latent expertise that you're not always using all the time, but it's there. And now the need arises and you're able to use it. I just think it's so great.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like muscle memory, like, riding a bike. You haven't done it in a few years and you just sit on it and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of remember. You just go forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Tammy, one quick question for you. You mentioned that you were a school teacher. So are you right now still engaging with your students, and how are you finding time to do all this other stuff? Giving you a chance to look like a superhero here, because
Yeah.
my wife is a school teacher, and I know that she's teaching my kids and her own students at the same time. So.
All right. Well, I have a freshman in college and a junior in high school, so they're thankfully able to teach themselves. But I do teach my second graders every day online and via a Seesaw app, which is amazing. So I'm in touch with them multiple times throughout the day. I do take a lunch break and I sew a little bit, and then I'm sewing at night. So it is hard to juggle everything. I'm definitely not a superhero, but it feels really good to be able to do something to help. I had a friend whose father got taken to hospice the other day, and she had asked if she could have a mask or two so she could go see him. So it really means a lot to be able to help people in this time. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. Superheroes help people. So, I mean, by definition, I think that, you're playing a part. I think it's great.
I think it's okay because I do the editing, or actually my son does, to say badass. That's pretty bad.
Oh.
Yeah, it is.
And speaking of badass, Lola, if you want to throw a plug out there about, your bartending job, if you want to, want to throw any names out there, or people that you might know in the industry that are still, that might still be open or still serving or anything like that you want to throw some props to, now is the time.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So Ballyhoo is doing takeout Fridays and Saturdays. I highly recommend that because, their sausages are all, homemade. Lockhouse is, I believe that they still are distilling. I don't know for a fact if they have changed the operations to do hand sanitizers, which I know One Foot Cock is. But also, I think for a lot of us that are unemployed, I myself became an admin of service industry tips for the town of Buffalo. So basically, if you're kind of like making yourself a drink or fixing yourself a dinner, you can go online and it's it'll choose a random person where if you decide or if you can and have the generosity to, you can Venmo them a tip, if you fixed your drink, as opposed to like, when you would go out and have someone make you a drink and you would tip them. It's, it's a small act of kindness that kind of just means a lot because, most of the time we're just cooped up inside trying to take our mind off of anything. And if you get, a random notification that says someone Venmoed you this amount of dollar, it's like, oh, wow. Thank you for thinking of me.
Lola, after this is over, if you could send me on a Facebook message with a link to how to do that,
Yeah,
that would be great. And I'll put that up in the description as well.
cool. Thank you.
That's really cool. I didn't know that was even a thing. So I'll make sure that I, tip somebody next time I, have another glass of water, or orange juice, or whatever. We're all in this together.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's like, you realize that we really aren't that alone. We're all in this together, even though we're in our apartments by ourselves.
Yeah.
If we're not all working together, we're not going to get out of this. If we're not all working together, we're going to be stuck in our homes until who knows when. So
Definitely.
we're really working together by being apart, as crazy as that sounds. To be super deep with it, we're working together every minute that we're not together. So I think it's awesome. Ladies, I want to thank all three of you for joining us. If anybody has anything else they want to add on before we let you go, feel free. But I want to thank everybody who's watching and or listening right now, and I want to thank Del for having good questions. Because I'm just winging it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thanks.